problem is that we're not
Blacks
telling
here in
the
this
kids
city have
are
made
starting
a
to use
significant
drugs earlier
contribution.
in life than they ever have.
Welcome to Minority Focused. I'm your host, Jimmie Moore, and we're very honored to have with us today one of the most outstanding young men in the city of Paducah, and that's Reverend Calvin Cole. I'd like to welcome you to the show.
Thank you, Brother Jimmie.
And if I may, I'd like to acknowledge up front that you've recently been the recipient of a Doctorate of Divinity degree. Aren't you doctor now?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic.
Brother Cole is fine.
Okay, Brother Cole. One of the things we want to talk about today was recently there was a contest, if you will, a list of nominees for West Kentucky Educator Award. You were on that list.
Okay.
I don't know who did win, but you were on that list. And it's well known that you were one of the educators at the old West Kentucky Vocational School. I'd like to start out by asking you, are you a Paducah native?
No, sir. I'm originally from Morganfield, Kentucky. That's up in Union County, Kentucky, up around the Henderson area, Sturgis, in that area.
And all the fine, upstanding, righteous people in the area is what attracted you here, I'm sure.
That was one thing.
I thought as much. How did you begin your tenure at West Kentucky? Oh, let me ask you first, were you, what's that word, big word, matriculated? That's where you studied or whatever?
Well, I came to visit the school one day. This was during the time that I was in high school, and I knew right then, it was at that point that I really knew that I was going to come to West Kentucky.
Wow.
But I really knew, Brother Jimmie, when I was like 14 years old, 13 years old, exactly what I wanted to do in life. Right. Because I went out in my grandmother's front yard and looked up toward heaven and asked God if he would help me to become a tailor. So that's kind of interesting, and that I think that will always be in my heart.
For sure, for sure. I know at that time, in addition to instructors that came from some of everywhere,
yes,
there were students from all over the country that
yes.
came to West Kentucky, and it was good to come and be taken care of, if you will.
Yes.
By black instructors, black faculty, it was an all-black vocational kind of school. Your career field was tailoring.
Yes.
And how much does it cost for a brother to hook you up for a suit nowadays? That's an interesting feeling. You don't find a lot of people anymore, not that I hear of anyway, that practice tailoring.
It's a dying art, Brother Jimmie, and it was just a great opportunity here in Paducah, here in the city of Paducah, to be able to not only attend West Kentucky Technical College, but it was just a wonderful opportunity to be able to come back and teach students as well.
Right. I know a lot of students back then, I attended there too, were really interested in other things, as a lot of students are who leave home, go away to school and what have you. The parties, the girls, all that sort of thing. Just take any course and, just as long as you're there.
Yes, sir.
Were the students back then, did you find as serious about using tailoring as a life's vocation?
Yes, sir. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I can remember the first couple of weeks in class, and it seems like, to me, if I'm remembering correctly, that the students in the tailoring class were basically competing against one another. Who could get the stitches the best? Who could get on the sewing machine and sew the straightest line? Who could sew the best curves? Who could make the best corners? So we were really serious about our work at the time.
Right. Was there a lot of training that you had to do You didn't do the same thing as you do in West Kentucky. You come there and take a tailoring course. Was it a natural thing for you that you started out doing?
Brother Jimmy, I feel like it was natural, but yet, though I felt like I had the gift, there was that certain technical polishing that I needed. And Mr. Barnes was there to help me to get what I needed to get started to doing the right things, doing things properly.
I remember Mr. Barnes.
Yes.
By the way, you came in behind him.
Right, correct.
After he left. I remembered, too, that just as the business administration course did, most of the students, or I thought, most of the students in tailoring were female.
Yes.
But that was that necessarily the case back then? I remember several young men.
We had several males in the class, several.
Right, and it seems like even after all these years, I remembered, where I've seen from time to time, a young man around town who still practices. Now this has been within the last 4 or 5 years. He may have stopped.
Okay.
But for many years after graduating from there, I'd see him around town in outfits.
Yes.
That I knew he had to have made. Was it necessary to, in a tough kind of way, critique what the students did, or was there some leeway as to how you graded them, say, for graduation? I mean, did you really have to get them, and as you mentioned earlier, did a stitch have to be?
Yes, it did. It did. In order for you to be able to get what you needed to get, you just had to practice, practice, practice until you got that, until the teacher was satisfied.
Right.
I just worked hard, and even when I began to teach school, I tried to just talk to students and tried to get them as well to do the same things that I did in school. Work on it, practice, believe in yourself.
Right. I remember, it seems to me that the classes were large, that they had
yes, they were. Yeah, 35 and 40.
Wow, I had no idea that large.
Yeah, they were fairly large.
And like you say, that some of them were serious, very serious about what they were doing, and planned to use it as a life's vocation. Was it a matter of, say, a male student being able to make exclusively male clothing, or to be able to go either way, to be able to make females clothing, or did you leave that in the hands of the gender?
No, I think when I first started off, the very first project that I had to do was pants for myself. And after mastering the pants, then, Mr. Barnes finally allowed us to do different things, like get into skirt making for a woman. And so he allowed us to do both men and women, although some decided in their own minds, I'd rather do the men's more so than the women's. But it was really better for you to know how to do both.
Right, I understand. Did it seem that that back then you recognized those students who would be totally capable of using this as a life's vocation, as a living, making a living at it? Were you able to point them out like instantly, or did you have to check their work for a little while first? Well,
I could, in the very beginning, when I was in school, the first 2 or 3 days, I just knew who was really, really doing the work. I knew that right off. And then when I started teaching school, I could tell, who was really gifted. Who was really gifted? You could tell right away, pretty much. After that 4th, 5th day, you could tell. You could tell.
Right. I know most of us who attended there and then left didn't really have a clue about how the school was running. You know, I wonder, were there difficulties in having everything that you needed for your classes? Was it hard to get everything that you needed for your classes? For example, for example, some of the materials that the kids were going to waste because they were going to mess it up. Was there any problem in getting those sorts of things?
Well, I don't really feel in my heart that we had a problem getting supplies and materials that we needed, because Hancock's was available. There was a place in Mayfield that we used to go years ago to get materials, and then Mr. Barnes and Mrs. Hickson always knew exactly where to get in contact with companies that could supply what the students needed.
And they did.
Yes.
They did.
Yes.
I'm sure that was an asset, because that's a lot of material to be zigzagging
Yeah.
cutting up and what have
Oh,
you.
yes.
Of the students that passed before you, let me ask you this: how many years did you teach?
27.
27 years.
Yes, sir.
In those 27 years, have you seen any of them? Have any of them returned and still have their skills?
Most certainly. Most certainly.
that
Most
right?
certainly. And then every now and then you get telephone calls, you know, from students that you taught years ago. And they just let you know how they're doing, and some of them are still working in the tailoring field, still in the business.
And, most of the tailoring that I know anything about that's done, all the big names, those big guys, they're all foreigners. This, you know, the different brand names that they're famous tailors, and they ask people on the catwalk, "Who are you wearing?"
Yes.
You know, and they name who made their clothes and like that. Major cities is where most of these people practice their arts, because you don't hear a lot about good tailors.
I think you would be able to see more tailors. I'm talking about not just a man, but women and men tailors who practice in the larger cities. And this is not to say that there aren't some tailors right here in this city. There are tailors right here in this city that went to West Kentucky who still practice.
Right, right. I think most of the instructors that were there, you just mentioned Mrs. Hickson. Mr. Hickson?
Yes, that's his,
That was,
right.
that was his wife. I've not seen very many. I was close to the business instructors, of course, because I was in that class. But a few of the others I've seen over the years, and when they have the Alumni Association,
Sure.
things go on here, and a lot of people come back. I know that students do. I think there may be 4 or 5 instructors from West Kentucky here in Paducah.
Okay.
I think I've seen 4 or 5, you included. But the rest I have no idea, you know, where they've gone to. And it would be interesting to tap into all of them and find out how many young people, or I don't know if they'd be young now, but how many people are still practicing the things that they learned in vocational school. It's got to be some kind of an elation to teach someone to do something. It's almost like having kids.
Yes.
You know, when you teach them something and then you see them happily, joyfully going about practicing those things you've taught them, it's got to have a tremendous feeling.
Yes, indeed. It's like in the very beginning when, you know, the first day of school, and you began doing the stitches, and then going from the stitches to sewing straight lines on the sewing machine, and then to making tacks on the sewing machine, just from one detail to the next. It's wonderful just to be able to see that student, or those students, being able to come along. You know what I mean? It's just wonderful to be able to see them pick up and learn. And not only that, but seems like to me, Brother Jimmie, the greatest feeling that you can get is when you get ready to see one graduate. You get ready to see one go out and into the world of work and practice what they've been trained to do.
For sure.
And then in addition to that, it's good to be able to see one not only practicing, but successful in a successful business. That's a wonderful feeling. That's a wonderful feeling, to be able to look back year after year and just see that person continuing to do the work.
Right. I mean, that's a great benefit to those of them that if they can't make a living at their vocations, if they choose to do something else.
Yes.
If anything happens with that, they've got something to fall back on.
Exactly.
Maybe even just for a little while.
Exactly.
To sustain them. You know, I took business and I don't really remember a lot about it.
Okay.
But I'm still tight.
Yes.
You know, and do an adding machine and, and a number of other things that the instructors were about teaching you. You get burned out on it, did you?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Brother Jimmie, I've had this passion that still burns inside of me today. Although I don't get a chance to get on the sewing machine every day, I don't get a chance to get on the sewing machine 2 or 3 times a month. But yet I have this passion that burns inside of me since day one, since that day that I looked up to heaven and asked God to help me to become a tailor. That passion still burns inside of me. You know, when I see clothes and when I look at people, you know, what they have on, sometimes I just think about how I would do something different or just modify something just to make it better, you know what I mean? But that passion is going to always be inside of me, and I know that's a gift from the Almighty.
For sure. I was working a job, and a lady came in, and I had on a pair of glasses, and she was doing something, and she looked up and said, "You've lost something, the little eye thing right here."
Okay.
On my glasses.
Yes.
Because she was a dentist.
Yes.
I mean, not a dentist, an optometrist.
Yeah.
Saw it immediately.
Uh-huh.
Are you like that when you go around, when you go about your everyday?
Yes, sir.
Do you find yourself critiquing?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I do. A lot of times I've been at different places, different functions, you know, and men or women would be standing up, and I would be looking to see if that collar lays flat, if the back is smooth, you know, if the shoulders are too wide, you know. Just seeing if everything's just so.
For sure, that's the professionalism that's still there. You
Yes,
know,
sir.
Because you weren't just a student of it, or for that matter, just a teacher of it. You're
Yes, sir.
A pro at it. Can you make a suit?
Yes, sir. I have made suits.
Men's suits of clothing.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And make them in a manner that anybody in your position wouldn't be able to look at them and say that stitch is off, this, that, or that.
Well, yes, sir.
Absolutely
Yes,
perfection. Sir. Wow, that's awesome. In every class, you know, there's so much more you learn than exactly what you do. Like, you know, in tailoring you learn to sew. In cosmetology you learn to do hair. But also in those classes there's math.
Yes.
The English of the subject. And that, you know, sort of thing. You don't just come in and get to sit down and take a needle and get started and do that. You got to learn a lot of other stuff. And that's beneficial too. Whether you know it or not while you're doing it, you may well need some of that when you.
Exactly. And in fact, I think back when I used to leave from the tailoring class in the afternoons, and we used to have to go to Mr. Walker's class, Emmett Walker's class. He used to teach math, and I remember those days quite vividly.
Right. If you were like me, you were running from the math because I didn't want any parts of it. But it was, unfortunately, when I came to school, I noticed immediately that the business administration class chock full of girls.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I took business, which was a good course, and it came out well. Like I said, there's a lot of things I've learned that I still utilize. Brother Cole, tailoring as it is today, do you find or do you know that it's taught as it was then, as it was in your tenure as an instructor? Is it same things?
I do not know that. I don't know if it's taught today. I really don't have an idea. I don't have an idea, Brother Jimmie, as to whether or not it's taught like it was when I was in school. I just don't know that.
Right. It would be a shame if it weren't.
I would hope that it's being taught somewhere.
Somewhere.
Yes.
It's a marvelous vocation, as were all those courses, I felt, at West Kentucky. And given the opportunity, I would like to have gone back and taken each one of them.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and then been what, master or jack of all trades or something along those lines. I had friends in my hometown and relatives from other places, friends from other places that came to West Kentucky back in the day. And it was just wonderful being there.
Yes, sir.
The college atmosphere and all of that. But my mother taught school for 39 years.
Okay.
And all the classes. And I remember her coming home sometimes and saying, "I am so sick of those old crazy children, I don't know what to do." You know, did you have students like that you kind of wish they'd take something else, or?
I had those days. I had those days, to be truthful with you. There were days that I had to pray, and there were days when I just depended on the Almighty to help me to try to help somebody else to really, really be serious about what was going on inside the classroom.
Right. Just less than a week ago, I met some people at a family reunion. It wasn't mine, but I just went there, and several of them mentioned that my mom taught them more than anybody else did, that they learned more.
Wonderful.
You know, from her courses and stuff. She didn't, so I know that it's difficult being an instructor because you have all of these minds and personalities.
Yes, yes, Brother Jimmie.
I'm going to share a little story with you. My mom, in 6th grade, my mom taught me. And she came around and said, "Benjamin Jones, do you have your assignment?" "No, ma'am." "Lois Wilson, you have yours?" "Yes, ma'am." "Robert Nall?" "No, ma'am." "Jerry?" "No, ma'am." "James Curley Moore, do you have your assignment?" And I said, "No, ma'am." And she said, "I don't know what the rest of these kids did last night, but I saw you. And you didn't do your homework, and you didn't do your assignment." Snatched her glasses off, went across the hall, borrowed another teacher's paddle, came back, laid me across the desk, and wore me out. I was the only one the whole year to get it. You know, it's got to be such a tedious thing. And there were a lot of older teachers around, you know, my city. You know, black teachers for the all-black school that we had, and they were tedious and, you know, devoted and my mom used to walk almost a mile to catch her ride to the school she taught at. Winter, summer, it didn't matter. So I saw the tenacity of people who are about teaching someone else something.
Yes.
You don't teach for you, and God knows you don't teach for the salary. So it's about helping someone to develop
exactly
develop their minds or develop something about them. That can make
and you know, that makes a difference, Brother Jimmie, because when you have somebody who is really, really into helping somebody else to get somewhere, you don't, like you've already said, you really are not there for the salary, but you want to see people be able to go out and be able to make a livelihood for themselves. And you find that your whole heart, every fiber of your being is in the classroom on those days. You know, you just want to see people make it. You want to see them make progress.
Right. I remember it seemed that when my mom would come home from school, she got busy with the, you know, grading papers or doing plans, or and she was busy like for hours. Sure. You know, taking care of the rest of that day and getting ready, you know, for the next day. So I have the greatest respect. Yes. For teachers and retired teachers and what have you. You know, that's a, I don't know. Because I think, not that I condone it, but we heard in the news a couple of weeks ago about this teacher beating up this kid. Okay. I don't condone that. But at the same time, you know, imagine the frustration. Especially when you know what you've got is good, and you're trying to get them to understand that what you've got is good, and they could care to heck less. That could be a very, very frustrating thing.
Yes, sir.
But Paducah's happy to have had you in that capacity, and in the capacity that you're in now, and you've got some more things to teach.
Yes, sir. I'm grateful for that.
Amen.
I'm grateful for that.
Aside from the tailoring job, I was stuttering because I was just thinking, my mind was just flowing over things, you know, that you do, and the person that you are. You can always rely on the reality of something that's said about a person. If another person, unsolicited, says it, unbeknownst that you know this person, then you know you can pretty much count on it.
Yes, sir.
Really appreciate you coming. I know you're a busy man, and thank you so much for coming to do the show with us. Hope maybe one day we'll get you back, and you can bring your rule and you say, line me up, you know, get me started.
Oh, my. Well, Brother Jimmie, it's been a delight just to be with you today. I appreciate you asking me to come. It's just been wonderful. It's just been a delight.
Much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
God bless
you. Enjoyed it.
Yes,
Enjoyed it. For Minority Focus, I'm Jimmie Moore.